How do I stay happy and positive in a country like Finland? Now, you might be from somewhere else around the planet, but perhaps you'll find something useful from this video. I've been living in Finland for almost 5 years now, coming from South Africa. Moving here was a massive cultural shift and just a mental shift. It was also, the country looks completely different to what I'm used to. So I guess to start off, we have to talk about what is it about Finland that makes it possibly really difficult to be happy here. The first thing is that it is very cold. And especially if you're not used to the cold weather, Finland is one of those places where you're gonna feel it, man. It can be really shocking. The second thing is that it gets very dark during winter months. I'm talking about the sun going down at like 3 p.m. and then it's just dark and you feel like there's nothing to do, and it can feel really depressing where you don't get enough sunshine, and that can impact your mental health. The third thing is that people here are quite different. If you come from a different part of the planet, in my case, South Africa, people are very open and outgoing. You can just go to bars and stuff alone and you'll end up meeting friends really easily. Whereas here, people are a lot more reserved. When you go out, people like to hang out in their own little groups, in their own little communities. It can feel very lonely at times. If you didn't grow up here and grow up with friends here, making friends can be quite difficult, and finding events that you can go to where the whole point of it is to meet people and talk and get to know people, those things can be really difficult to find at times. Another thing is that this country can feel quite small. Even in a city like Helsinki, it feels like we miss out on a lot of the big things that are happening around the world. Yes, we might have big musicians who come here, but not often. A lot of the times they go to Sweden or some of the other bigger European countries. So Finland can sometimes feel a little bit like a backwater country. Not that it is, but it can feel that way. You can feel like you're out of the loop. There's obviously a ton of other things, but in short, it can be easy to feel very isolated, especially when you add all those things together. Life itself can feel really dull if you are caught up in that mindset. So how do I do it? Because for me personally, my life is amazing. I'm genuinely enjoying living here. I enjoy every moment. Yes, there are difficult times, but in general, I've got a very positive outlook. So how do I do it? There's a couple things. The first and most important thing is gratitude. And I know this is going to seem like I'm taking you around the bush, but stick with me for a second here. The foundation of my happiness and my joy is based on the fact that I exist. So journey with me to the beginning of time. The Big Bang happens billions of years ago. We don't even know how that happened, but it somehow did. Fast forward to 1990, where the Voyager 1 flies into space, and it's around 6 billion kilometers from Earth, and the mission commanders tell Voyager 1 to turn around and take a picture of the solar system. And it does that. There's this breathtaking picture of the Earth, this pale blue dot. And someone said that everything we've ever known, all of human history, took place on that little blue dot. Everything that took place in human history somehow culminated in me being here right now, talking to you in front of a camera. How many things had to take place for me to be here? How lucky am I to even exist? For me, that is the foundation of my gratitude. I sometimes sit back and I cannot believe this fact. I basically won the existence lottery. When I wake up, I take a deep breath and I acknowledge my existence. That for me is just everything. And that's where we start. And I know it sounds like we went far afield, but it's very important for understanding how I deal with living here, even in a country that has all the things that I mentioned at the start of this video. When I first moved into this country, it was very hard for me. I tried my best to be positive, to look at things in a different way, but it just beat me down. The weather, the darkness, all of this stuff felt like a heavy weight on my shoulders. I was often feeling very lonely, and it took me a long time to try to figure out a way to deal with my emotions. And the thing that I found is that to be able to deal with how I feel, I have to accurately diagnose what my issue is. You see, the problem with us is that when we feel bad or we feel sad, we think that it is a holistic thing, that it's everything about our existence that makes life difficult. I personally found that to not be true. I found that there are 5 aspects of being human that affect my happiness, and they're really simple. The emotional and mental, I group those together. That is basically the way I interpret what I see and feel. I'm sure you've heard of, do I see the world as half empty or half full? Number 2 is relationships. Whether I'm dating, family, friends, those things can really impact the way I perceive life. A bad relationship can truly impact your happiness. Number 3 is money. Money insecurity or worrying about money, not having enough, greatly impacts how I feel. Number 4 is spirituality. Basically having an awareness of something bigger than myself, be it nature or God, something that I can lift my soul up to. And I know it sounds a little bit cringe, but just stick with me. And then number 5 is my physical body, how I feel, what I put into my body. I want to go through all 5 of them quickly and show you how dealing with each one of those greatly changed my perception of life and my enjoyment of life. You see, we are constantly seeing the negative side of life in general. Good things come and go, and we forget about them. Bad things come and go and we hold on to them. That needs to change. The way I dealt with my mental, emotional side is by learning how my mind works and how my emotions work. There are 3 books that I've read that have completely changed my life. One is The Untethered Soul, and that book taught me that the voice in my head isn't truly me. Just because I think of something, it doesn't make it true. Thoughts can run through my head and I can acknowledge them and let them go. It doesn't make it true. The second book that changed my life is Man's Search for Meaning, and it's by a guy called Viktor Frankl. He was in the concentration camps in Germany during World War II. And his story is about how he managed to somehow find meaning even in one of the darkest places a human can find themselves in, and somehow was able to find hope and life even in such a place. And number 3 is a book called The Power of Now. And that book is talking about just how important it is to focus on the here and now, because most of the time when you're feeling sad or bad, you'll find that you're either sad about the past or fearful of the future. And this book teaches us to stay here in the present. And for me, that completely changed the way I try and deal with things in general. The next thing is relationships. I was once caught in a relationship when I first moved here that I felt was sucking away all of my life, my energy, and my hopes. And I had to have the courage to break it off because I found that it was messing with my quality of life. So if you are feeling terrible, you need to ask yourself, is the relationship I'm in affecting my quality of life? And if it is, then you have to make some very real choices. The third thing is money. If I find that I'm stressing out about money all the time, it really impacts my joy, because then I can be laying up at night worrying about how I'm going to pay bills or how I'm going to do the things that I want to do. So a solution to that was to make more money, and that can be in a variety of different ways. But mostly, hey, at the very least, get an extra job or start doing a side hustle. Do something that can start earning me a little bit of cash. And luckily here in Finland, there is so many little jobs that you can do, even jobs that don't require skill, that can add a little extra cash in your pocket, even doing something like freaking washing dishes. The point is, if you are worried about money, then you need to focus on making more. The fourth thing is the physical aspect of who I am. You know, the food that you eat, the amount of sleep that you get, whether you do exercise or not, all of those do have an impact on how your body feels. So for me personally, I stopped drinking alcohol because I found that it was so often that I would wake up with a hangover, and because of the way the alcohol works, the next day your emotions are very depressed and you feel low. And I found that just had a very negative impact on my emotions and my physicality and everything else. So I had to stop. So I had to start creating routines for myself, being aware of the food that I eat. I began to watch videos about being healthy, trying to get enough sleep. All of those things genuinely have an impact. As a side note, it's also important to understand that the way your body feels has a big impact on your emotions. And sometimes it's not that deep. Sometimes, my friend, you are just tired and you need to have a good night's sleep. Sometimes you are just hungry and you need to eat. Sometimes your body is just unhealthy and you need to start going for walks or start going to the gym or join some sort of sports club. Lastly, spirituality. We are human beings living on a planet that's floating around in space. We don't understand why we're here or what the point of anything is. So we are naturally drawn to try and connect to something bigger than ourselves. There are different ways to be able to do that. One of them could be religion. Perhaps you spend time trying to meditate and trying to connect to deeper parts of yourself and the world around you. Perhaps you go out into nature and you are very observant of what nature looks like, and you take the time to actually see it for what it is. All of those things are super important in fulfilling this deep sense of meaning in our lives. So having said all of that, the way I deal with things is I look at them through that lens. If I wake up feeling terrible, my first thought isn't that the world is terrible and my life is useless. I send a probe down and I wonder, what is it exactly that is bothering me? So sometimes I'll send a probe down and I'll realize that, oh, I'm actually tired. I haven't had a good night's sleep. So by understanding that I'm not casting a sense of dread over my entire life, I just understand. I wake up and I do my day knowing that my body doesn't feel great, and I accept that. Sometimes I feel terrible and understand that, oh, it's because of this relationship that I'm in, or it's because I don't have enough money right now. And I know that I don't have to blame my entire life. I can just focus on one thing at a time. And there are times where I have to lean on some of the other aspects more than another aspect. So let's say if I'm feeling sick, obviously physically I feel terrible. So I have to lean on something else. Perhaps I've got friends. I have to lean on relationships. Perhaps I can lean on my spiritual side. Perhaps if I've got money, I can go and travel somewhere or use the money that I have to buy myself medication. It's like this constant analyzing of trying to figure out where the issue's coming from and trying to deal with that. Because the truth is, it doesn't really matter where you live. You know, of course, you can go to a country that has a lot of sunshine, and sunshine gives you vitamin D and it can greatly help your emotions. Some people just can't handle being in dark, cold places, and that is understandable. But the truth is, humans have been shown to be able to thrive and survive in a variety of different atmospheres and different places. Hence the book with Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. It shows it is possible to derive meaning, hope, and joy regardless of where you are. But having said that, here are a few practical things that you can apply to yourself if you're living in a particularly cold and dark country like Finland. The first thing is, remember to take vitamin D, especially if you have darker skin. Our bodies don't absorb as much vitamin D in a country like this that doesn't have as much sunshine, and vitamin D does indeed affect your emotions. Number two, have something that you are working towards. For me personally, I've got a whiteboard. You probably can't see it, but I've written down all the things that I'm hoping for, all the things that I'm working towards in my career, relationships, the amount of money I want to get, where I see myself in the future. And by having some sort of plan, it gives me guidelines and it gives me perspective, the right perspective. Otherwise, I would just feel like I'm floating around, not knowing exactly where I'm going. Number three is I make a point to admire nature whenever I can. I've got a nice apartment where I can see the sunrise, and I usually sit by my table drinking coffee in the morning before work, and I see the sunrise. And even if there is no sunrise, I take a moment to just look out and actually try and see the beauty. I take a deep breath and acknowledge the fact that I exist, and I just take a few minutes, not more than 5 minutes, to be grateful. I found that writing in my journal is incredibly helpful in helping me diagnose why I feel the way I feel. Because when we leave things just in our minds to just play around, you can get this vague sense of unhappiness and not know exactly why. And writing down things for me just makes things super clear. And by taking the time to put my feelings into words, it just helps my mind structure things a lot better. Something else to try is to get a hobby. And I know this is something very simple, but it's true. Just going out and doing something, whether it's boxing, running, whether it's enjoying the process of making videos, doing music, whatever you can do outside of work and that sort of stuff, it helps create the sense of prosperity and a sense of doing something meaningful that you simply enjoy. In closing, it is important to understand that the foundation of all of these things is gratitude. The important thing to understand, my friend, is that gratitude is a practice. It is not trying to force yourself to feel a certain way in some toxic, positive way. No, It's by acknowledging the present moment. It's by taking the time to acknowledge your existence, to go out of your way to celebrate your wins, to let go of things, to appreciate your relationships, to work towards something. There is so much beauty in this world, and it doesn't matter where you live. The fact that you exist is an absolute blessing, and there are no words to accurately describe just how much of a blessing it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, leave me a like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know below if this helped you, if you have any other tips that have helped you enjoy where you are living. You guys are amazing. Be absolutely blessed. Until next time, cheers.